Let's talk about why Jomez is slipping. What's up, guys? It's Wild Runs here, and today we're going to be looking at why Jomez is not the Titan that it was before. Now, I think this is a little bit controversial, but based upon what I've seen so far in this season, I think it's just purely inevitable. And I really did not want this to happen, but now that I see the reality of it, I think I'm actually a lot more accepting of what's going on here. So looking at Jomez's channel, their viewership is pretty good. I think if you're averaging between like 100 to 200K per content, that's a great start. And with their Patreon, they're making a decent amount of money, so they're doing fine. They also don't have to pay for any coverage yet, so that's also a huge expense that they don't have to pay. They've upgraded their film equipment, so their production quality looks a lot better. And overall, their content isn't necessarily worse, but looking at where their trajectory is looking, I don't think it will just be Jomez all the way for the next coming years. And the reason why I say this is because looking at the non-tournament coverage or content that they produce, none of it grips me in the way that any other channel does. Like I look at all of their clickbait titles for clips where Germ or Yuli are doing practice rounds, and this is just indicative of everything. You just have clickbait title with content that is not actually that good. I'm very surprised that it's able to get 127K views because the actual video itself feels so produced and so fake, and I just don't feel like I'm getting any authenticity. And the reason why I loved Jomez before was I felt like everything was genuine, but I feel like when you have 6 cameras on you and your job is to be funny, then you're just not going to come off as the personal person that you did before. Now, when it was just Yuli and Sexton just like riffing for a whole round, I felt like that was a lot more authentic. I could really connect with them, and it felt like a really down-to-earth sport that I want to be a part of. But currently with this content, it looks so produced and so fake that I just feel like I will never pretty much watch any video that isn't core coverage. Well, with the exception of the videos where they're trying to recreate old shots. I think that's actually really cool. That's a really cool concept that I don't see anybody else doing. But that has been basically the only good thing that I've seen outside of their tournament coverage. And even with their tournament coverage, I don't think it surpasses other people's. They might have better video quality, but other than that, there's really not a big differentiator. And so I don't think that's going to bid well for the future. But I will say that they have the ability to film every league card, so that gives them a lot of leverage. So they're able to come out with these highlight videos that are going to do well in the algorithm. Maybe not with that one. That 69K views is not great compared to the 250K. But yeah, highlight coverage is going to always go to the channel that has the best content or the best lead card. So that's definitely going to go to Jomez for probably the next 4-5 years. But with the exception of that, the actual content does not seem to be that good. And they have started to do a lot more content in their tournament coverage. So they're able to do really produced interviews with players on the league card that you don't particularly know as well, or sometimes you do know as well, but just getting a deeper dive. And that is just another thing that just kind of loses the authenticity for me. Like everything that they say in the interview feels like it's like promo for a Super Bowl. Like it's making a big deal out of something that is a big deal for these players, but it just comes off as, hey, say this in a really dramatic way. And I don't get the feel of like, hey, this is actually like what the guy's personality is like. It's more of, let's try to make a really dramatic video. And I think that is in the same tone as their new intro song. It really goes for a dramatic, over-the-top feel that I just do never get from disc golf. I'm excited when somebody makes a 100-footer, but for the most part, I'm just looking to have like a chill time. But they've really leaned into the over-the-top, dramatic, just weird feel that I just do not care for. And I would not have guessed that Jomez was going to be that type of channel, but with I think Jonathan Gomez, I think that's his name, with him leading the charge of his channel, I think it's only going to get worse and worse, which really stinks because I really liked Jerm and Sexton. I think they had great chemistry, but I think those days are numbered, and I just don't think it will ever go back to the way it was, which is fine. But looking at that, I think it's important to look at what else we got. All right. So this is the epitome of why I like the other coverage, particularly almost better. So I think, this is Simon covering live coverage of Waco in the final round. And I think this was everything that I wanted out of a tournament. It's obviously a little bit longer because it's live, so you get boring ads, boring everything. It's a slog. But when you have Simon on the commentary booth, he's candid. He will not be like Nate Doss and just whip out some, frankly, BS that nobody else thinks or cares to say. He is going to be his real self, and everything that he says, it's almost like, Simon, are you allowed to say that? Like he's just real. And I think like when he sees Kale kind of like drop off and he sees Nico getting that win, he's like, dang, Kale's a really nice guy. And so like by that he means Nico is not a nice guy, and he was hoping Nico did not win. And that's stuff that you would not get on live coverage. They're just going to be hyping up Nico's shot, and it was an amazing shot for the win. But because we have all these options now, we can get vastly different experiences. And so when I see this particular content, I don't think Simon's going to be doing this much, maybe ever. But when I see this particular type of content, this is exactly what I want. There's not a whole lot of fancy stuff around it. There's no fancy intros. It's just Simon riffing for about 3 hours. And I think it might have been my favorite tournament I've ever watched. It was just so good and so real, and it was in real time. So like the quality of the live stream, it's not there yet, but it still has gotten so much better than last year that I'm a happy viewer. And I'm particularly not happy about Nate Doss being being in the commentary booth. I think he really degrades the quality of the content. But overall, when I look at in most recent streams, Terry and Nate Sexton, them along with potentially Ian being the commentary people, I think it would be perfect. I think if they could get rid of some of the ads, make it a lot more focused on just MPO, because FPO really needs to be segmented in its own category. Having them interspliced together really ruins it a little bit. But if they can just distill these things into like a really concrete product, then everything is just going to be so much better than what Jomez can offer right now. And I almost hate saying that. I really think Jomez still has the potential to be great. But when I look at this type of content, it is just so good. Sorry, jumping back. So this is where Ricky was immediately putting after Paul. And the reason why I pull this up is this just kind of shows the authenticity of live coverage that you do not get in post-produced. So in this moment, I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get copyrighted, but Paul missed his putt that was like vital. I think this is hole 14, and Paul was down by 1. I can't remember exactly, but Ricky needed the putt. It was basically the same mini position, and he drains it. And just the overall interactions were like as professional as they could be, while still being a little bit salty about it by both parties. And it was just great. Everything about it was phenomenal. And I just felt the tension in a way that I don't feel in any post-produced content. So I just see this and I'm so enthralled. And with this particular coverage, they had one of my favorite people in the industry, Charlie Eisenhood, who runs the Upshot podcast. And his chill tone and speech makes it so much more enjoyable to watch than Nate Doss spewing some stuff that I don't particularly agree with. So, in addition to that, besides this being one of the most gripping back nines I've ever seen, it cut to Heather Young and Katrina Allen fighting it for the FPO win. And that was another tournament that I probably wouldn't have watched if it was post-produced. But just because I had started watching this stream, I started watching the FPO. And the battle there was also like amazing. And I will say the shots just aren't nearly as good. So that's still going to need to take some work. But just seeing great live coverage coming into the forefront of the industry, it just makes me so confident that this is going to be the content that the majority of people are going to want to watch. Even though I still really enjoy 30-minute by 30-minute content per round. I think that still has a spot. But just watching Belton made me so excited about everything. It was just great. And with that, there's obviously the other channels. So Central Coast isn't necessarily doing a lot. They have a lot of FPO coverage, and I think that's just not going to do all that well, and it's showing that it's not really performing. But I still think they have a potential. I think Ian's one of the best commentary people out there. So I think there's still a spot, but I think he might transition to just doing live coverage. It's hard to say right now, but the people that are really killing it right now, at least in my opinion, for post-produced content, is GK Pro. Every video that they put out, I pretty much will want to click on. I haven't watched round 2 just because I watched the live coverage and I've already kind of seen it. But overall, like, they just have the exact tone and feel and professionalism that I want to see. There's no clickbait, there's no BS. They just go right to the content, and it just feels so true to the sport. I will say that having Luke Humphreys and Kevin Jones together, they just have a great chemistry, and I think they're hanging out nonstop. And so obviously I love Kevin Jones, so I'm a little partial to him. But they'll also have Nate Perkins or Nathan Queen sometimes, and just the chemistry between pretty much everyone in this channel, it just feels so real and so authentic that I'm pretty much always going to watch their videos, and especially their skins matches. I think that's the type of content that Jomez wants to have, but it's just not there yet. But GK Pro nails it every time. They always have fun stuff to watch in the skins match, and it gives a great preview, even though it comes out pretty much after the tournament every time. It gives a great idea for what the tournament's actually like and like what you feel like in person. And it's just so good. So if we look at all that and we come back to Jomez, I think in some way, which is almost crazy to say, I think they are falling behind. I think they're not being the top dog. They obviously have the best views, making so much money off their Patreon, making tons of sales and discs and merchandise. But I don't see them killing it in the way that they have before, just because everyone else is coming to produce better quality content, more authentic, and more true to the sport. And I just see this dumb thumbnail, and it just kills me every time, because I just do not feel like that's the sport that I'm playing. It's some clickbaity channel that's trying to get dumb views. And I mean, it's performing well, so maybe I'm just wrong, but I don't like the commentary. I don't like the content. It's just not doing it in the way that it was before. So with all this put together, I think Jomez has a future, but as of right now, it's by far my least favorite channel as far as tournament coverage goes. So if you guys agree, disagree, let me know in the comments. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.